Hello, world, and welcome to the Last Comic Book Standing podcast. Are you a casual fan of comics? Maybe you like the movies, you're familiar with the characters, but don't really know much about comic books. And that's where I come in. I do the reading, so you can sit back, watch, and enjoy the show. Let's get started. All right, so welcome to episode 15, guys. We start here. We see the cover of Excalibur #1. And I would just want to share the second page of the book because I just think it's really crucial to understand the storyline and how it's beginning. So the day of Charles Xavier's world-changing announcement, several of the world's most powerful magic users also received a transmission as Apocalypse introduced himself to his fellow sorcerers. Paradigms have shifted. With any shift, things fall between. People believe the unbelievable and power inverts. So in the days of old, we held magic high. The wise and strange were sought for everything from sickness to prayer, to make the crops lush and the water flow. So the witches of humankind have been relegated to curiosities. Doctors heal your sick, scientists tend to your crops. For you, magic is a dying thing. The prophecies of our rise have come and gone. We have saved you as promised, and we will earn back our history from you. On our land, we will write the songs and histories that can only be made in luxury. On our land, we will believe in the things you had the luxury to conceive of when you lived in caves. On our land, we will make and raise mutant children who have only been raised in peril, in secret, in war, and in anguish. For millennia, I have believed that these trials made us strong. No longer must we believe this lie. Our strength is absolute. Our magic is not in its autumn. It is the young God born again with a sword in hand. And it is the domain of the superior. So the story begins in the Camelot of the otherworld dimension. In the middle of a battle, we see a character named Queen LaFay call one of the commanding knights over to her. She leads him inside the castle where she uncovers a water well, and all the while she's explaining that the royal family is not doing well and she's trying to keep Camelot safe. She pushes the head of Sir Garrus into the water and demands that he tell her what he sees. It's one of those wells that you can use to see the future. They observe these plants in the water that are the focus of her concern. And just a brief synopsis of the story up ahead. All hail. It is the dawning of a new day for mutant kind, and with unprecedented Krakoan peace comes the chance for prosperity, for growth, for magic. But there is a war raging in the other world, a threat that demands the attention of Captain Britain and Excalibur. And here we see our cast of characters: Betsy, Braddock, Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, Apocalypse, Trinary, and Brian Braddock, aka Captain Britain. So now we're shown the Braddock Academy in England, and we see Betsy packing for Krakoa, and we see her brother Brian come in with his family. They head outside towards the portal and talk about old times, and he tells her this trip will be a good one for her, and off she goes. Once Betsy goes through the portal, she's greeted by the rest of the X-Men on the island. Apocalypse is overseeing everything, and he gets notified that there's a new portal gate ready for him to take a look at. And he makes an interesting statement when he mentions that the children born basically from the hookups that will happen later that evening will result in the most powerful mutant children the world has seen. And we notice the famous couple, Gambit and Rogue. Can you imagine the type of powers their children will have? Once Apocalypse reaches the new portal, he's told that it's not known where it leads, to which he responds that these gates don't only have access to points on Earth, but it's possible to reach other realms too, other dimensions, like the otherworld in Camelot. The portal breaks like a crack in glass, which he says is the result of it being blocked on the other side, that they'll need a champion to breach it. You guys see who that's going to end up being, right? We then are shown members of the Coven Solar Blackwood trying to fight off these spirit apparitions, and Sir Garrus appears and presents Lady LaFay, who tells them She's taking away their magic because they have double-crossed her. She tells them that these Krakoan weeds are entering her fortune well, and she wants them to find out who's responsible, and tells them that no mortal will be allowed to use magic until the gate is destroyed. Back on Krakoa, we see the mutants mingling when Betsy's approached by Egg, the mutant responsible for creating the egg spheres where the clones come out of. And he tells her to accompany him to the hatchery where the new clones are born. And once they arrive, he explains that they resurrected her other brother, Jamie, but they need her help because he's just been hanging out in the egg doing, quote, gross things. Jamie goes up to Betsy and she's immediately annoyed since there's a lot of bad blood between them at the moment. She tells Jamie to clean up his mess and get moving because they need to resurrect others and he's in the way. They have a little quarrel about Jamie meeting with their other brother, Brian. She heads out to bring Brian to Jamie instead since he's refusing. Apocalypse then stops Betsy on her way out to let her know about the gate leading to the other world and how they can't go through it, but the other world can use it on their end to come through. So he suggests that Betsy bring her brother Brian, Captain Britain, who has an amulet that will allow the portal to be used by them. Betsy then meets with Captain Britain, who says he's been alerted of an emergency in the other world. So she tells him that she had just discussed this with Apocalypse and warns him that it might be a trap. So they agree to take on the challenge together and head out. I've never been a big fan of Captain Britain's costume, but Betsy's new outfit is pretty cool. So now they arrive at the other world and are immediately greeted by the not-so-kind Lady LeFay. She grabs Captain Britain by the throat and reminds him that he's a servant of Camelot, and since she now rules Camelot, he's her subject. She wants him to find out the cause of this foliage that's polluting her well, too. She accuses Betsy of being responsible for it and commands her coven to take him away. We then quickly cut to a scene with Rogue and Gambit walking around the island, and he's suggesting a location where they can plant a house, and they're talking about the newly created Krakoan law to make more mutants, encouraging basically lots and lots of sex. But they're interrupted by Trinary, who asked her to come see Apocalypse. Apocalypse explains that the portal they've been working on leads to King Arthur's castle in the other world, and that Betsy and Captain Britain have gone there without telling anyone. They think he wants them to go rescue them, but what he really wants is for Rogue to try and see if she can dampen the magic spell on the portal that doesn't allow them to travel through it. Gambit doesn't have a good feeling about it, so she tells him to suit up too. Jubilee arrives since she's been called by Apocalypse, and we learn that the baby she was carrying earlier is her baby, which is pretty cool. They fill her in on the plan, and while Rogue is doing her thing, Apocalypse will try to communicate with Betsy on the other side. Now Betsy and Captain Britain are fighting Lady LeFay, and she takes control of his body. LeFay wants her dead, so Captain Britain attacks her since he's under her control. It's then that we see Apocalypse give Rogue the signal that it's go time. We see Rogue begin to affect the portal, and Apocalypse tells Betsy she needs to disrupt the gate from that side. She manages to throw her sword at it, cracking it from the other world side, which means no one can access it from that end. So Betsy is trapped. Rogue then gets jolted back, and Apocalypse tells them Betsy succeeded in shattering the glass, but she sacrificed her ability to return. So Rogue begins to feel weird, and we begin to see the plant vines at the portal begin to wrap themselves around her. Everyone freaks out, and Apocalypse tells them to stay back, that something must have come through the gate. We then see Rogue completely taken over by the vines as it's taken her as a host. Betsy is fighting Lady LeFay and sends Betsy's brother to finish her off. That's when she grabs his amulet, and you can see that even as he's being controlled by LeFay's magic, he wants Betsy to escape. So he tells her to put the amulet on and teleport out of there. We then see Rogue again, and I gotta admit, I kind of like this purple Rogue, even though she's catatonic. It just looks pretty. So Gambit is pissed, and he blames Apocalypse and tries to attack him, but he's no match for the god, you know? So suddenly everyone is surprised that Betsy's back. Apocalypse tells them that her new name is Captain Britain, for obvious reasons. It's the amulet that gives her that power. So Betsy just wants to know what happened to Rogue. The story ends with the coven leader from earlier in the story having killed her entire coven as a sacrifice to save herself from Lady LeFay. She enters this hall looking to become a new member of a different coven called Coven Akaba. And if you look closely, you see her with a bag of the same crystals Apocalypse was using to test the new portal. Now, here's the thing. There was a group called Akaba in old storylines that basically were worshippers of Apocalypse. So could this be a coven that will help Team Excalibur defeat Lady LeFay and get Captain Britain back, or Brian? We gotta wait and see what happens in future issues. So stay tuned to the channel and stay up to speed with all the new X-Men storylines. And for this week's issue, I read it while listening to PJ Harvey's Down by the Water. Can you take a guess why? It's a pretty cool video too. It's from 1995, so it's an old school classic, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. Remember to like the video below, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Last Comic Book Standing. I'll see you next week.